To people in Florida, how is the evacuation situation with Hurricane Milton? My aunt and uncle were planning on riding it out in Venice in order to support some neighbors who could not leave. That has changed, and they are gathering said neighbors and pets and going to our empty seasonal condo a ways inland. They can't get a hold of the property manager to get the key, but my uncle is a retired firefighter, and I am confident in his ability to get in. I told him I'll replace the damn door frame if I have to. People who are no longer bound by NDAs, what are some surprising secrets that you can expose? In a tech support role, one manager used to boast his team's average call times were the lowest in the company. While average call times were in the 12 to 17-minute range, his team was constantly under 10 minutes. His team was awarded multiple times, and his strategy was adopted company-wide to all customer service and technical support teams, including our internal teams. That strategy was under a strict NDA, as we did not want to allow competitors to emulate it. When our call center would go bid on contracts, it became an awesome metric. Our customer satisfaction scores are on par, but we have call times 20 to 30% lower than our competitors. The dirty secret of the NDA that I was not allowed to disclose, their big method. Just hang up on people. Straight up. Find a way to say okay, go ahead, and do that, and call back if it doesn't fix it. Then hang up. What's an app that's actually worth paying for premium? Super Greg. Contrary to its name, it's one of those apps that basically can help identify, track, and make a perfect watering schedule for plants. I don't have a green thumb, and I've managed to keep about 20 plants alive and thriving for a year and a half now because of it. Makes plant growing literally idiot-proof. What's the most unsettling thing someone has said to you that you can't forget? My wife once woke me up from a sleep and said, "Can you go feed the clown in the closet before he gets angry?" and turned back over and went to sleep. My side of the bed faces the closet, and it's dark enough and big, deep enough to hide a clown for sure. She has zero recollection of it. What's the most bizarre coincidence you've ever experienced? When I was in the early stages of dating my spouse, I brought her to my hometown to meet my parents. While looking at an old family photo album, she pointed to a picture and said, "How do you know this man?" I answered, "That's my uncle," and she said, "No, he's my uncle." Turns out her mother's sister married my mother's brother. What's the most ridiculous argument you've ever had? Had an argument because I said in the future we won't be able to just turn on and off gravity with the flip of a switch. Told friend his ignorance was angering me. He howled, "That's because I'm right." What's your favorite childhood memory? I was sitting in my neighbor's walnut tree eating all his walnuts and gorging myself happily because a few weeks before I had innocently gone up to his door as an innocent child, talking about the cruelty to baby seals and why we shouldn't do that, and asking for a donation with petition I had got online. He chewed me out and intimidated me and berated me on the doorstep. I was just a little kid and didn't know what I was doing. I got my revenge and belly full. I don't regret it. As a shy person, how do you become more extroverted? It's just like overcoming any fear, constant exposure, and putting yourself out there. I do still feel a lot of anxiety, but I can force myself to overcome if need be. Honestly, working as a waiter, server in a busy restaurant really helped. So maybe involve yourself with an activity that forces you to interact with strangers. What's a disaster that is very likely to happen, but not many people know about? The ocean fisheries will collapse. Yesterday's trash species are today's featured catch of the day, will be tomorrow's memory. Harvesting is occurring at unsustainable rates, while environmental degradation is steadily reducing habitat and forage ranges. For many people in developed nations, fish is one option, among many, for protein. For most people in developing nations, it is the cheapest and most accessible option. When it's gone, there will be catastrophic socio-political and economic upheavals. What family secret or hidden backstory were you finally let in on when you were old enough? My great-grandfather drank himself to death. My grandmother was ashamed of where she lived. He was the town drunk that spent most weekends in jail. She often had to carry him inside before school because he was passed out on the lawn. They finally told me all of this when I started drinking a handle a day. How did you get over your heartbreak? Having a routine, working out, eating well, and focusing on feeling good, stay busy. But honestly, I've been heartbroken more than once, and every time is different. Don't suppress the pain, let it out. What was the last thing that really made you cry? The loss of my dog. He went from doing zoomies in the park one week to not being able to eat or breathe properly the next. He died under the anesthetic for his x-ray while we were driving to the vet to say goodbye to him. I've never cried that hard or for that long before. What lie were you told as a child that you believed for far too long? Parents told the 6-year-old me that they were fighting monsters at night to keep me safe as I was asleep. Took for years to realize that they were just having very loud sex at night. What's a tradition your family has that's a little odd? We do a Christmas Eve Nerf war. Most of us are adults diving around tables and sniping each other. My sister used her toddler as a human shield until he was big enough to join in. Now he has a Nerf Gatling gun and beats everyone. What's the most ridiculous example of you knowing someone lacking common sense? A coworker once complained their coffee tasted really watery. Turns out they'd been brewing it without any coffee grounds, just running plain water through the machine for weeks. What's the most dangerous thing you've ever done? When I was a kid, I walked out on very thin ice on a river on my way home from school. A neighbor found me, and I never understood why he was so angry and yelled at me. I get it now. What are the subtle signs that someone with depression is in need of help? Aside from sadness, lack of motivation, lack of pleasure in things that would provide pleasure to someone. Depression can also make people more irritable. They might sometimes seem angry. Self-care might be lacking, as in hygiene, eating, etc. Makes me pretty sad when people judge others without really knowing what's going on. What happened to the academically worst kid in your class? He somehow went to college, got a bachelor's, and then went to law school, passed the bar. To further up the ante, he became the city attorney, lost the job when the mayor got voted out, and now has a real estate law firm. How do you spend your free time after work? I try to have quiet time right after work by reading. It helps me decompress after looking at a screen and being around people all day who ask me 1,000 questions. It also helps my mind get out of work mode so I don't continue to think about work when I'm home. What's the most embarrassing thing you've done in public? Was at work. I had my coffee in one hand and files in the other. I was walking by 6 of our corporate higher-ups who were talking in hall, and I fell, coffee splattering everywhere, on me, the files, the floor, and on them. Luckily I didn't lose my job. What do you regret not doing in your 20s? Looking back, I regret not taking more risks in my 20s. Whether it was trying out new career paths, traveling more, or just stepping outside my comfort zone. I played it safe too often and missed out on opportunities to grow and experience new things. What's the biggest prank you pulled as a kid? My brother and I were in the middle of an intense Rick-roll war, but I knew my brother was looking for a car, and I knew exactly what he wanted. So I put a post on Craigslist with a reasonable description, a picture of a decent-looking example, and put a price that was reasonable and believable. The kicker was that the phone number was to a Rick-roll hotline. 2 days later, he texted me, "You win."